unless you're a unicorn, and don't think you're going to be a unicorn because you're not, right? Like you're just not in the first, I think 2 years, you're not going to make enough to support yourself.
Welcome to the Rogue Startups Podcast, where two startup founders are sharing lessons learned and pitfalls to avoid in their online businesses. And now, here's Dave and Craig.
Oh, man, I am cooked.
I bet. 2 back-to-back conferences pretty much, right?
Oh, God, and I have to travel next week for freelance, too.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Killing me,
it's
man.
The life of a baller, man.
Traveling like a baller. Well, let me tell you, this guy's going to be done with it here for a little bit after this. I mean, 3 weeks in a row. I haven't traveled 75% since I was like 25.
Yeah. No, it's exhausting, isn't it? I mean, it's just...
It's brutal.
You don't even, like, I used to travel. For a while, I spent about 3 months in a hotel straight. And you don't even realize that, like, you're eating out all the time and you're not really, like, restful because there's no good place to rest or anything. Like, it's all the little things that just kill you, I think, with travel.
Yeah, it's the eating, and your exercise schedule is thrown off.
Drinking too much. And
Yeah, I mean, I drink more alcohol when I'm traveling than when I am at home. And what else? You're sleeping in a strange bed, and so the sheets smell weird, or they're not warm enough, or they're too warm, or the bed's hard, or it's too soft. Like, there's just something about it that's off because it's not yours, you know?
Yeah.
And then you repeat that ad infinitum, and yeah, it gets exhausting. I wasn't even doing like major time zone changes. I went like plus 2 hours and minus 1 hour.
Yeah.
And I'm still just like a zombie. Of course, I've been up since 3 a.m. my time, so that might have a little bit to do with it. But
you're getting soft, man. That's all there is to it. You're getting soft.
I totally am soft in my old age. I totally will be the first to admit that.
Oh, man. So you're at Shopify Unite so we're recording on like Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening my time. You were at Shopify Unite this week, and obviously MicroConf last week, right?
That's correct. Yes, I just got back from Shopify like 2.5 hours ago.
Fucking dedicated podcaster there, Dave.
Yeah, that's
Walk in the door and flip on the mic.
Well, you know, the beautiful thing about reporting on a conference that you were just at and you got really jazzed about is that it doesn't take as much brain power as trying to like focus and get things done from your to-do list that's about 23 items long.
Yeah. On
just one of the conferences. The other one has another to-do list of about 11. So yeah, I can handle podcasting right now. The to-do lists are going to wait.
So I saw on Twitter that you had a picture of the Canadian Emmanuel Macron, huh?
Yes. Yes, I did. Well, I mean, that was so trippy. Like, Justin Trudeau just showed up to Shopify.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. No, it is. I think
what?
It was your tweet or someone else's that was like, you know that you're doing something right when it's the Prime Minister, the President, or whatever he is of Canada shows up to a freaking startup conference, right?
Yeah. No, that was Kurt Elster that tweeted that. He was also there at the conference. And that's exactly what he said. And I totally agree with him. Like, when the Prime Minister of your country shows up specifically because of the quality of the startup that you're running and the impact that it has on Canada and how visible it is, I mean, that's a pretty big statement about Canada's tech scene. I mean, they definitely would like to take more advantage of the fact that Canada is basically the northern tech hub, and they don't really promote that or trumpet it, or, you know, the U.S. sort of pounds its chest more on the tech scene than they do. So I think they're like, hey, us too.
Totally us too.
And rightly so. And rightly so.
Totally.
You know, there's when I was working in the 90s for consulting, I would say a solid 25 to 33% of the accounts that we did for our cross-platform GUI toolkit were Canadian companies. So, you know, saying that there's not a tech scene in Canada is is totally off base.
Yeah, I saw a really interesting Medium article last week, I think, about how the immigration reform in the Trump era, not to get political, but this is fact, is really going to swing things towards the Canadians. Starting now, right? I mean, the startup visa, or the visa for talent to come, H1B or what, HN1B or whatever it is, to come into the United States is going away, and the Canadians are like, yes, bring it on. We would love talented tech people to come in here and work for Shopify or whatever, and they're going to start eating the San Franciscans' lunch, man. It's going to be crazy, I bet.
110% what you just said.
Yeah.
And in fact, I spoke with somebody at the Shopify conference. This is exactly why it got moved to Toronto this year from San Francisco last year.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, conferences
because
left
of the
and
immigration.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't want to deal with the immigration hassles. They've got people coming in from all over the world. There were 800 people at the Shopify conference, a mixture of agencies and app store people like me coming in, and they didn't want to have to deal with, screwy immigration stuff. And so they're like, all right, well, we'll just take it to Toronto.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll bring it back to San Francisco next year. I don't know. But that was a pretty strong reason for them to take it to Toronto. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, politics and immigration reform aside, so how was Shopify Unite?
It was awesome. So, there was a whole, and this stuff is all online, by the way. So if you actually want to watch the keynotes that I saw, that I flew up there to see, these are all publicly going to be available. I don't think they may have been live streamed already. I don't know if they were recorded and posted. I haven't really been paying attention to that. I was lucky to get on the right plane this morning. But all of this stuff that I'm about to quote was probably stated in one of the public keynotes, so I don't have any problem repeating it here. But there was all kinds of cool stuff that I learned about, like total sales volume that's gone through the App Store and just how big it is and how big it's getting fast. So Shopify has like over 600,000 merchants on the platform, and in total they made 26.3 billion in sales. And I don't know if that's last year or historically. Either of those is still a huge number.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any way you slice that, it's really amazing. And they were talking about how stuff has changed. Like Asia has seen huge growth in just the last 3 months, like 82% growth in 3 months, 164%, I think, for South America on Shopify platform. And then, of course, North America had some big growth as well. I don't remember that statistic, and I didn't write it down. I was taking notes on my phone. But they're adding a bunch of stuff in there, and they have their new point of sale solution. So anybody who's running a brick and mortar store can actually have all of their inventory inside of Shopify, but still sell it in the brick and mortar. And then there's a credit card machine, basically a credit card swipe reader, that they can then deduct the inventory out of your Shopify inventory and track it all there with the sales and the analytics, and then handle the payment through Shopify. So they have this.
Brilliant.
They released that. Yeah, they released that last year. There are 70,000 people on this point of sale solution.
Wow. I
was like, whoa. And all we really hear about is, oh yeah, there's a retail apocalypse. 5,000 retailers closed in North America last year, but 3 times that amount opened up on Shopify.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, that's the part that, nobody's actually talking about.
It's just changing. It's just changing how people sell stuff and people buy, right? It's not more or less.
Right.
It's just
You
different.
drive around in your city and you see all these stores closing, but you don't realize that all this other stuff is available to you online. It's just not as visible because you don't drive around on the internet, right? And then the one that I thought was really interesting is that they've had cumulatively 100 million in App Store sales. 50 million of that was last year.
This is from people like you, right?
This is from people like me.
Okay.
So the App Store is taking they showed the growth of it for the past 5 years or however long they've had it. And of course, it looks like a SaaS hockey stick kind of graph. And this last year was the first hockey stick event on the store. So 50 million, they've historically done 100 million total. So half of that was done in the last year. there's a huge opportunity to be made on Shopify is the bottom line here.
Yeah.
So, I'm sitting there pumping my fist in the audience and going, yes, I'm glad I'm here now. I'm glad I just got in. It's a great time to be here. I'm not going to make 50 million in a year. I don't need to make 50 million a year. I just get my little slice of that success on a viable platform that has energy and vibrance and people coming into it. That's where you get some success in an entrepreneurial venture like what we have. So
yeah,
that was super exciting to learn. And the main reason that I was going to Shopify Unite was to just do networking and connection and introduce myself and see who was there and talk to real people from Shopify, make some actual connections. So that was very, very successful. I talked to the head of the partner program. I talked to a QA lead. I talked to some people in the support team. Everybody was super friendly. They had they said they had 60 staff on site. Shopify has 3,500 people working for them.
Wow.
I was like, what?
That's huge. Wow, that's incredible.
That's unbelievably huge. Now, that's split between Toronto and San Francisco. I don't know what the numbers are like, but that's the number that somebody had quoted for me.
Yeah.
And they had probably 60 staff working the event, plus at least another, we'll say, 100 that attended it. So this would be all of the executives and the leadership team and people that were trying to be there for office hours, because they had hours and hours that you could sign up for on Calendly to go talk to the Shopify QA and support team directly, sit down face to face, raise whatever concerns you had, and then they would be looking into it.
Wow.
Which was super cool. Yeah. I mean, this was a partner conference. And so as a partner, you really felt like, they really gave a shit about what you had to say and what you thought and what was in the future. And they were asking you questions. Hey, we just released all this cool stuff. What was your favorite thing?
Yeah.
So yeah, there was tons and tons of stuff that they announced. They're kind of ramping up some features that are similar to things that Magento's had for a while, stuff like multi-currency, multi-language support, which kind of pushes them more into the global space. And then there's more of B2B feature things. And then they're also, the big one that they announced here was that they are actually having a messenger client. It's called Shopify Ping. And this thing is something that is going to integrate conversations across their customer platform. So you can talk to your customers directly on the store, or customers that send text messages to your SMS number, or customers that are contacting you on the Facebook widget, all coming into one spot for you to communicate back. You can also use that same messenger client to talk to your staff separately. So it's kind of like having your own integrated Slack channel that's Shopify specific.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that, they're integrating skills for this virtual assistant that they've had on Shopify for at least a year, maybe more. I think it's 2 years. It's called Kit. And Kit is just, you can type in something that says what's the level of t-shirts that we have in green right now? And Kit will process that statement and turn around and tell you what that looks like. And so there's skills, it's like Alexa or Google Assistant or Siri or something like that. There's SDKs that allow you to extend that, and you can add skills to the skill set. And they added Kit for this ping messenger. So basically you can be operating your whole business from your phone. You can talk to your customers, talk to your staff, have it do things for you, like reorder stuff, or send things to customers, do auto fulfillment, or if you have certain apps installed. It's pretty heady stuff, man.
Yeah.
These guys, they've got their shit together, and they are pushing forward hard and fast. I mean, they are looking to eat everybody's lunch.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'll speak in general because I think I'm not an e-commerce expert, but they're already the market leader, right? So doing all these things is just expanding their reach and the types of businesses they can go into and the things that store owners can do. I think that's fantastic. I mean, it's cool for you to be associated with an ecosystem that is as innovative and forward-looking as that. Because I mean, I compare it to WordPress, right? Kind of like we did in our last episode or 2 episodes ago. I don't see WordPress doing those kind of things. I mean, Gutenberg is not like revolutionary to a CMS, right? So it sounds like Shopify is really kind of like taking what Shopify is and making it a lot more instead of just making it better. I don't know if it's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd say that that's a very fair assessment. So when I looked at all the live stream events, I didn't go to Unite last year because I had just purchased Recapture. I didn't feel like I was ready for it at the time. I looked at all the live stream events that they had on there, and I watched, I don't know, maybe half of what was in the live stream events. And they made some pretty huge announcements last year as well, like that point of sale stuff I talked about. And it wasn't just like one or two things. Like I looked at the announcements coming out of Magento Imagine, and it was kind of a very different feel. Like they were talking about some tech upgrades on the platform, but they didn't have like this laundry list of, hey, here's a big thing, here's another big thing. Oh, by the way, here's 3 other big things that go with those other 2 big things. And here's an extra big thing just because we like to have big things, you know? I mean, they were pushing out huge things, but if they've got, 3,500 people working for them, they've got a shit ton of engineering staff that must be working on this thing. And they've been busy. I mean, that's all I have to say. They have been seriously busy. They're looking at things that are deficiencies in their store and things that their customers are looking for, and they're pushing them out there as fast as they can. So yeah, I mean, these guys are they're definitely the market leader for this mid-market entry-level shop thing here. I mean, they're definitely going to be taken away from WooCommerce and anybody who's like trying to fiddle around with that, because it's just more work to get that up and built and stable. Yeah. And they're taken away from Magento for people that are like, I just don't want to deal with fiddling around with this stuff anymore. And the customization is not what I need. I just need a store that runs. I need something that scales. I don't want to have to screw around with my own server anymore.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't want to have to
re-platform,
Yeah, no, sorry. So like I think the development velocity that they're seeing is testament to owning the whole platform, right? It's not Magento or WordPress that's open source and you install it on your site and you have to worry about compatibilities with all this kind of stuff, but it's our stuff. It runs on our servers. We own all the code. We have plugin integrations that extend it, but the core functionality is all ours, and so they can put all those 3,000 people to work in something that they entirely understand and control. And I think that's, I mean, for better or worse, I think open source is great, and things like WordPress and Magento definitely have their advantages, but if you really want to move the platform forward, you got to control the whole thing, I think. So
that's true. Yeah. And you'll never see this level of innovation come out of WordPress, in my opinion. And I doubt you'll see it from Magento either, just because they don't have a dedicated staff like trying to build the platform and push it forward. They have staff that are running the commerce, the enterprise side of this. It's called Magento Commerce. And that's fine. It's good to have that. But it's obvious that Shopify is prioritizing this for growth here. But, I'm not going to say it's all sunshine and roses. So I was talking to a number of App Store folks that were there, and sort of the running question / joke that everybody was saying if you were talking to other App Store folks was, so what did Shopify announce that totally stepped on what you do already?
Right.
Or what did they announce that you're totally excited that you can now integrate with that you've been having to work around before? And depending on who you talk to, like there was a couple of people that were telling me that they had a friend that's somebody who had just introduced a multi-currency app for Shopify. And they're basically going to be totally superfluous in summer when they release this new multi-currency support.
Yeah.
They don't support all the currencies at once. It's like, the 7 big ones, the pound, the euro, the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, stuff like that. Not every single currency in existence. So if you do that, you've at least got a little bit of a coverage there, but they are, hitting the big ones in the market, the ones where people are in their store right now. So whoever released that app, and this is a pretty new app, by the way, they're just like, oh God, they just totally did that. And they did announce one thing that, they said this, and of course, as soon as they said it, my ears perked up. So Shopify's had abandoned cart emails, and they've always been available at certain levels of plans and above. This year, they're going to be pushing it so that abandoned cart emails are free on all plans starting in summer. And I panicked about that for about 2 seconds, and then I realized, wait a minute, I've seen their abandoned cart emails. The stuff is shit.
Yeah.
It's a one email sequence where you get minimal customization in the content. You can't segment it. You can't do follow-ups. And the editor is meh. So it's a really poor experience, and it works okay if you can recover some revenue on the first time, but I can show lots of evidence that shows multi-email follow-up campaigns will easily double or triple the amount that you can recover from people, because hitting them that one time isn't necessarily the best time.
But so, I think it's like yet another lesson. I mean, I know that like Stripe introduced like dunning emails and payment recovery and metrics and all this stuff. And you see Josh Pigford saying, yeah, that's cool, but as you're saying, kind of, we do it better, or we do it different, or we do more. So I think you always kind of have to stay ahead of your platform in a respect, right?
Right. You can't, anybody who's just sort of sitting on their laurels for the platform will eventually be eaten up, because Shopify made it very clear. I remember the director of the partner program was saying, our goal is to provide 80% of what merchants need.
Yeah.
And they expect apps to fill in the other 20%. So that tells you, if you're doing something that was a major hole, and a lot of vendors thought that was a major hole, there's a good chance that Shopify might come in and try to fill that hole. So you either have to do it a level or two above what Shopify does, or you got to get in early and then try to capture a bunch of customers out of that and then level up from there. So you definitely can't sit on it, and can't just hope that Shopify never invades your space, because they seem to have no qualms about going in and doing things that are going to benefit the vast majority of the merchants. Now, with that said, not all of their solutions, an 80% solution to them is for abandoned carts, one email.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that works okay.
Yeah.
Sort of, for sometimes. But is it the best way to handle it? Could you be doing it better? Could you have other things with it? Yeah, absolutely. So having the solution that I've got, I'm not at all panicked by that announcement. If anything, it's now making abandoned carts more common. And with somebody who's running a cheesy abandon a cart campaign, it's going to be real easy, I think, to spot that. If you go to Built With, pull a list of Shopify stores out, and then have somebody go try to add a product to cart and see what kind of an email comes out, I'll bet that the Shopify emails kind of have a signature look and feel and content to them. Mm-hmm. I'll bet I could digest the email HTML content and structure of that email and spot it a million miles away.
Yeah.
So, that would be a great way to go in and pitch them to say, hey, when that works great for now. When you're ready to upgrade to something that works better, let me know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. I mean, I think you're in a great spot to be participating in a space that Shopify acknowledges is important, but obviously doing it better and different than the core app that they have. And I'm sure you'll continue to work and spend development dollars to stay ahead of them, because it's a super important thing for e-commerce is, abandoned cart recovery, upsells and cross-sells and promotions and all that kind of stuff. Super important. That's awesome.
Yeah. They also announced a services marketplace, which was super interesting as well. So right now they have this designation called a Shopify expert, and you can apply. There's some basic requirements in there. But this new services marketplace allows merchants to come in and say, hey, if you're looking for photo editing or content writing, or they're doing this new virtual augmented reality thing. So they're going to need 3D modelers to take products and then construct a 3D model of that, so they can turn around and skin them with different colors and different fabrics and different textures. So the person can take a look at it in their house on an iPad. That's what Shopify is heading toward. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But this now presents a whole new opportunity. So if you're an entrepreneur and you have some skills, like for example with Photoshop, maybe you could actually go into the services marketplace and offer your services as photo editing. So now you've got sort of we'll call it a productized service, right?
Yeah.
And then now you get contact with these people that are merchants in the Shopify store. You're going to have a very direct link to somebody who is having some pains. So if you're struggling with trying to figure out what to do, now you could use some expertise that you might already have, get onto this Shopify services marketplace, which is going to be available in the summer, and promote your services on there, learn something about a store, and then have an opportunity to build a Shopify app to solve a problem for people.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're struggling figuring out, well, how the hell am I going to make this work for me, Dave? Here's how you do it. Sign up for the Shopify Services Marketplace with a skill that you can help with. And then use that as a productized service, figure out some pains that the Shopify store owners have, write an app.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's your free takeaway from Shopify Unite here 2018. I hope it helps somebody.
2 episodes in a row. It's crazy. We gave away the huge WordPress product idea last episode, and now this. The thing I like about this is it leverages like 2 really great things. One is providing a service in the market that you want to go into for a SaaS app, which is something that we've done. A lot of people have done. Folks like Justin Jackson and Brian Castle. All say is like the great way to get into a market is like provide a service and then turn it into a product. But it also leverages the marketplace idea, right? So like WordPress or Shopify or whatever. And so now you can participate in a market in a productized service. If I was starting today, that's exactly what I would do. 3D printing for product owners, like perfect, right?
Yeah, and it's you don't have to do everything at once. You're not just going SaaS out of the gate, because that's really hard unless you really target a pain and that market like the back of your hand. Not many people do. I certainly didn't. I didn't know that when I got into WordPress. I didn't know that when I got into Shopify. So you have to build up those relationships and that audience over time, and that's a fantastic way to do it. So had I, if I could send that information to past Dave, then future Dave and I would both be very happy, because we would have benefited from that amazingly.
Yeah. No, and I think I'll add a little bit of transparency that Dave, we're not terribly transparent on the show anymore, and that's fine. I'm happy with that. But I'll give some general transparency, and that is SaaS takes a very, very long time to build a profitable business. So I talked about it with Ed Freyfogel, the episode that went out last week. He runs I would say like a pretty big business with one other guy, and they're like 5 years into it, I think. And we were talking afterwards, and I said, man, we're about to come up on our first annual, like our first birthday, right, for Castos. It was this past week. And it just is becoming like profitable, not profitable, like truly profitable, profit like I can pay myself a decent amount of money after a year. And that's especially if you're a non-technical founder, right? If you're a developer, you can kind of like start bringing in a fair amount of the money that your app takes in, and you can take it home. But if you're like me and like a lot of folks out there who are non-technical founders, like you got to pay developers and designers and support people and all this kind of crap and servers and blah, 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 blah for a long time, because you don't have any of those skills. You don't have any of that capacity. And like, you're just not going to be making $10,000 or $20,000 a month in the first 2 years, probably, right? I mean, it's rare,
That's
rare.
a rare thing. That is so rare, yes. Spoiler alert, Recapture is not profitable. I'm spending all my money on developers and infrastructure, and I'm not paying myself a single dime out of it right now, because I just have that much work to do on it, and I can't do it myself. And I'm trying to push the sales and marketing forward, but somebody else has to push the product forward. And that costs money. That doesn't happen for free.
Yeah. No, I mean, so Castos, I make money from Castos, but it's not profitable because I don't make all that I need to make. I make money from Podcast Motor as well. But we could spend all of our money easily. I mean, I kind of consciously make the decision to take my foot off the pedal in terms of like development dollars and support spend and stuff like that, or ad spend or content marketing or whatever. I could spend a ton more money. But I say like it needs to be profitable. I kind of made the decision a few months ago. But yeah, man, unless you're a unicorn, and don't think you're going to be a unicorn because you're not, right? Like you're just not in the first, I think 2 years, you're not going to make enough to support yourself. And that's
totally
not a
fair
it's
assessment.
not a dig on anyone. That's just like setting expectations fair. And I think anyone, Rob Walling or anyone would say like, yeah, it sucks for a while. And then it gets really good. I can see that in a year, Castos will be a really good business. But right now we're just like ramen profitable, which is crazy considering the amount of money we spent and the time I've spent on it in the last year. So.
Yep, you got to set your expectations. There's a reason they call it the long, slow SaaS ramp of death.
Yeah.
And until you've ridden it for like 12 months, I don't think you truly appreciate it.
Yeah. So buzzkill and reality check for everybody, but I think that's a little bit of our responsibility, Dave, right? As people who talk about this shit a lot, is like, it's not rainbows and unicorns. It's a lot of late nights and working harder than you have to. But I think I still do think it is like the ultimate business model, because when it gets good, it's really good, right? And I think a lot of people see this is like when you figure out how to acquire customers cheaply and have them stay around for a while, it's a great business. So that was our tangent for the day. So let's move on.
I think I just figured out a tagline for us, our new tagline for the podcast. Rogue Startups, helping you cash that reality check for SaaS every day.
There you go. No, man, it's true. It's true. I mean, SaaS is a great business model, but I think if you can get past the first, 2 years or $10,000 or $15,000 in MRR, you've done a lot, because it's tough. So anyways, tell me about MicroConf. I followed the tweet storms and the hashtag MicroConf very closely, and I was very very sad I couldn't make it, but it sounded like a wonderful time.
MicroConf was also excellent as well. I got a lot of fantastic things. Obviously very different conferences. So Shopify, 800 people were there. MicroConf, I think it was closer to 250. So, a third of the size. So naturally you're going to have a higher level of intimacy. And having been to this was my 8th growth. Well, not technically my 8th growth. It's the 8th MicroConf I've attended in Vegas. The last 2 growths. I didn't go to the starter. Would have loved to. That sounded like it was going to be fun as well. But, after 8 years, you have relationships and friendships and, you just so many people you want to catch up with. So it felt like, I had a similar feeling last year. There were literally 200 people I wanted to catch up with. I probably caught up with a third of them in depth, because you want to have a good, long, really hard conversation with them. Like you want to hear about what's going on with them. And this isn't like a 5-minute thing. You're talking with them for maybe anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour. Mm-hmm. And, there's only so many of those conversations that you can have. And eventually, like, I'm trying to remember who was it. Oh, Chad Deshawn lost his voice at MicroConf.
Nice.
And also Jeremy Biron, who runs for Castly in another mastermind group of ours. And he couldn't talk. He was just like, because he had talked so much in that first day before the conference. So, that was the general vibe, just seeing lots of people, catching up with a lot of good friends. I always like to say hanging out with our tribe, because these are all the people that get what we do and are interested in it. And it's exciting to talk to them. It's exciting to find out what their businesses are up to. And then, of course, it's exciting to find out like what new stuff is out there and what people are talking about. So there were lots of great new speakers this year. I'm not going to go over all of them and say what each of them did, because you can go to microconfrecap.com and look at all the various notes. And everybody sort of gets a little different thing out of what was important for them for the talks. So, like, for example, I'll talk about like 3 highlighted talks for me. Justin Morris, who actually does a Shopify app. He was the very first talk, and of course I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally listening to this. So he does FOMO, which does these little pop-ups on your Shopify store that says, hey, Valerie from Rhode Island just bought the coffee mug set, and there's only 3 left, you know?
Right.
And that way it basically shows engagement on your store, and it kind of gets other people interested in buying stuff because everybody wants to get in when the getting's good. And this kind of helps provide that vibe on your store. And it like started out at around 18K MRR, which is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, these guys did a great job getting it up to 18K. But now Justin and Ryan Culp, who I met at Unite, they took it from 18K to almost 100K MRR.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you got to hear like how they got there and what were the struggles, some things that worked, things that didn't. They showed like a great email that I was going to totally steal that, you know, basically paints them as, hey, you know, we're the little guys here. And, you know, even if you can't pay for our app, would you give us a review? Because a review makes a huge difference in the store, which is exactly what I need right now. And just hearing that story was really cool and very inspirational. And yeah, so that was a fantastic talk. And a couple of other ones that sort of hit the highlights, high points for me. There was 2 of them on content. One was done by Leanna Patch, who actually helped do some of the copy on Mike Tabor's bluetick.io. So if you go to his website and check it out, you'll see that, you know, there's little bits of humor injected here and there in a very tasteful way. So Leanna is actually a comedian who also does copywriting. And so her thing was talking about how to make humor part of your copy in appropriate ways that engage your customers, because nobody wants to read boring crap, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, I think you probably saw that tweet come out after her talk, and then you're like, all right, I'm scrapping my whole email sequence and I'm rewriting it from scratch with some humor in mind. That was her talk that did that.
Yeah, no, sorry. So I did. So I rewrote all of the Sales Camp trial email series after she sent that out, because we have I think for us in particular, we have a no credit card required trial sign up. So like we have to convert the people in those 14 days. As opposed to Castos, we ask for a credit card up front. So it's a little more like they have to opt out of it. And yeah, so it was like I changed the headline on the first email because I did have the, welcome to Sales Camp as the title of that first email. And so we changed it to, what did we change it to? Something like better marketing is here. So yeah, just like a little bit of different stuff to stand out and yeah, have some tasteful personality, because I think it's huge, even in a real B2B setting like we're in with Sales Camp, is you can have a little personality, you can stand out, quirky, be tasteful, and still kind of get the job done. So yeah, it was cool, and actually we've seen some cool results from it. We're getting responses to the emails. We're booking a lot of demos, which is cool. So yeah, I love that concept for sure.
Yeah. And another one, there are lots of great stuff, so I'll just touch on a couple other talks that I enjoyed. One was actually an attendee talk by Val Geisler, who was doing the dinner party email marketing strategy, and I'd love to actually bring her on the podcast to have her talk about this in detail, because it sort of like codifies in a very specific system how to do a really good autoresponder. And, something I personally have struggled, having written several autoresponders for Support Vine and Business Directory plugin and AWPCP and now Recapture. Each time I'm like, okay, well, I've got a general idea where I want to take this, and how do I make it interesting, and how do I keep them engaged? And so she has a very specific 6 or 7 email thing in it, and she lays it out like the steps of a dinner party. And the way that kind of put it together, when you hear something, like when you hear a bunch of statistics or you hear somebody talking about something, you kind of get it. But if you hear it in the context of a story, and that story is memorable, or it's engaging, or it's funny, or it's like really scary or sad, something like that, when it connects with you in an emotional way, you remember it better. Mm-hmm. And that's how I felt about Val's talk, was that kind of an engagement thing there. I'm like, oh, dinner party email marketing strategy. Now I'm going to remember that forever, before it's like, oh, well, okay, you need an autoresponder and you need to do this in the first one and this in the second one. And that, I would spend a paragraph and a half of, large verbiage just trying to describe what she put into a single thing there. So that was really cool.
Right.
I like that one. And that was just an attendee talk, right? Just quote unquote.
Well, yeah, but so Val was, I don't know, like head of marketing or head of content or something at ConvertKit for a time. I don't know if she still is, but I was introduced to her there. We guest posted on ConvertKit a while back for Podcast Motor. And so she's definitely got her chops.
She definitely has her chops, and it showed in her talk. That was her first talk ever, her first public talk.
Wow.
It didn't look like it, and she was all posting on Twitter afterwards saying, oh, I'm really such an introvert, and this was really hard. She totally knocked it out of the park. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So, props to Val. You get up on stage more. You need to do more of that because you know your shit, and it was a great message, and it totally resonated. So anyway, another one that was really great, the director of marketing from Vengage, which does infographics. She came. Her name is Nadia Koja, and she was talking about the 12 principles of viral content, which, I'm not specifically looking to write viral content or even use viral content with Recapture, but that turned out to be unimportant because the things that she was talking about also help you write just engaging content, things that people are interested in reading or will be more likely to share. So it doesn't have to be something that 100,000 people show or all your Instagram friends, put into their feeds as well. It just helps to make better content in general, more interesting content, which there's so much content out there right now. You have to have something that kind of puts you above the noise. And so the 12 principles that she was talking about seem to me like great ways to put yourself that next level up. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, the things that I've read about virality and content is kind of like, set yourself up for success. It probably won't happen, but even if it doesn't, you're better off to create your content and write your headlines and have interesting storylines and things like that. Anyhow, if it goes viral, that's great. You have no control over it, but set yourself up for success and for virality, and give yourself kind of the best chance for that to happen, right?
Yeah. And I mean, even if it doesn't happen, this is just practice. It's practice with intent.
Yeah.
You're writing some content as if it was going to go viral. Maybe it doesn't go viral, but now you're getting better at writing content that goes viral.
Well, and then just people like, right? Because stuff is viral because people really like it. Yeah.
Right. I don't even want to think of it as viral content. I'll just say engaging content. Like, it's hard to write engaging content, but if you start with this list of 12 things in mind, it's going to help you write better content. Or in my case, it also helps you pick better topics for engaging content, which is also hard to do. So that's one of those things that, from my perspective, where I'm not the person that's actually writing everything, I still have responsibility for reviewing and picking topics and looking at keywords and trying to figure out what makes sense. And some of the things that she's talking about in here are ways to figure that out as well, specifically to try to make it more engaging or more viral.
Yeah.
And there was other great stuff. Like, there was another talk by a guy, Ankur Nagpal, who does Teachable.io.
Right.
And he was talking about how they did all these very crazy growth experiments by just basically deciding, okay, this month we're going to grow by this insane amount. And they just pulled a number out of thin air. And then they were like, all right, well, here's where we're at. Here's the number we just picked. How the heck are we going to get there? And so by having this forced constraint of just an arbitrary number, it forced them to be creative about the tactics that they would use. And then each time they made that number bigger, or each time their growth target got higher and higher, the same tactics weren't effective. So they had to level up on the tactics each time. And they did this for like 12 to 18, 24 months. I don't remember what the time frame was, long period of time. And he said, we failed like crazy. So many of these times we set these targets, didn't even work. Like, we set the target and we maybe pushed it up a little bit. Well, guess what? They still won because they're growing, right?
Right.
So like just giving themselves that constraint forced them to think about things with a growth mindset. So that was really cool. Instead of just thinking, oh, okay, well, we want to grow 10% next month. They were talking about, all right, we want to add 45% to our MRR next month. How do we do it?
Oof.
Yeah, it was brutal stuff like that.
Oh,
Like,
because I can say, right, Dave, after running a SaaS business for a year, 10% is nothing to shake a stick at.
Oh yeah, 10% is it's harder than it sounds.
Yeah,
Way
10%.
harder than it sounds.
And even, I mean, I tweeted about this, gosh, maybe 6 months ago, but the guys from Buffer tweeted back because I said, like, what's a realistic growth, after you get to some decent number? And they said they were growing 15% after the first year. So I mean, Buffer, right? Like the Cinderella story of bootstrap businesses growing at 15%.
Right, that's not the gold standard of growth. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, yeah.
If you can manage 15%, you've got a tiger by the tail, and good for you. I want to hear more about your business. Come on to Rogue Startups. Let's talk.
Yeah, no shit. I mean, it's a lot of things that have to go right.
15% is not the typical growth rate by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah.
No.
Man, that's great. That's great. Sounds like, I don't know, I kick myself in the ass for not going to MicroConf. We're going to Podcast Movement, big podcasting conference in July in Philadelphia. And it's really, really, really important for the business right now. So that's why we chose it over MicroConf. But I very, very likely will be at MicroConf next year because I just miss seeing you and hanging out with all of our friends and stuff like that. It's great.
We have yet to do a MicroConf episode that is joint with the two of us.
That is not true. Two years ago we did it.
Was it 2 years ago? Because I thought the last joint episode we did at MicroConf was Rhodium.
No,
which wasn't even MicroConf.
Right, so we did Rhodium, and that same year we did MicroConf. Yep. Because I've only been to one MicroConf in the U.S. So, yeah, It was 2 years ago, right before I quit my job. Yep.
I will claim total amnesia because after 130 some odd episodes, I don't remember hardly any of them at this point. It's a blur of great conversations, and that's all I remember. So
hopefully, right? Hopefully, it's
yes.
Good conversations. Yeah, that's awesome. Yes. That's awesome. Yeah. But cool. We have an exciting guest coming on next week, so a little teaser for everybody. I think the guest and the topic will be definitely something we've not touched on before. So I'm very excited to kind of dig into it.
Yeah, I can't wait to have Justin Bieber on.
We're
going to learn about his multi-million Belieber empire here.
There you go. Yeah. So tune in next week. A little Justin Bieber action. Everybody, stay tuned for sure.
Yeah. I think I might tune out now. I think we just lost our entire audience right there.
That's great. That's great.
Bieber, you guys are high.
You guys suck. But no, definitely next week will be an interesting episode, I think. Something we've kind of been working on for a while, so very excited about that. And I think going forward, Dave and I have talked a little bit about it, but going to try and do more content like this, the two of us talking about kind of what we're up to and what we're thinking about. I know we've had a fair amount of interviews lately, so trying to get just the two of us, so you guys are stuck with just Dave and I a little more here for the next foreseeable future. So for better or worse, right?
For better or worse. So if you have any questions that you want to ask about Shopify Unite, or you want to share some moments or things that you really liked or took away from MicroConf that we just totally ignored or didn't add here, and you want us to discuss more, we'd be happy to do that. Drop us an email, podcast@roguestartups.com. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I had the Rogue Startups meetup.
Oh, yes, how did it go?
It was great. So I got to meet, and I'm going to totally butcher people's names here, and I totally apologize for that in advance. Speaking as a guy whose name gets regularly butchered, I'm very embarrassed to butcher other people's names, but I'm now forced to do that because we're here on the air. So we got to meet Kevin Vanderlood and Richard Gorbett. And, there were some other folks that I had already previously known, but this was at Starter. So Nathan Tyler from Draw Attention and Staging Pilot was there. Obviously Phil Dirksen, regular attendee of MicroConf, saw him and was hanging out as well. But yeah, there were a lot of people there kind of wandering in and out. And it was very fun to get to connect with people. Oh God.
Did you did you catch up with Moritz Dossinger?
Moritz, yeah, thank you. I was like, there was a guy he worked with, Kevin McArdle of SureSwift, and I couldn't remember his name. I knew he was French, and I knew his name started with an M. Thank you, Moritz.
He's German, but
yes.
it's okay.
Oh God! See, I already. But
he lives in No, he lives in Paris. It's okay.
I can't get nationalities right. I suck. Anyway, yes, I did get to meet him. In fact, he found me. So I told everybody I was wearing my recapture cap with a white baseball cap, and I was wearing it at the pool. And he found me at the pool. So we had a great conversation before they even start up there. So that was awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah. So love connecting with the listeners that are out there. And, if you didn't get around to seeing me at MicroConf, or you didn't get to MicroConf at all, I strongly suggest coming in future years. Would love to have conversations. It's always fun to hear what everybody's doing, what you're learning, what you like about the podcast, what you want more of. All of that stuff is great. So, yeah, thanks to everybody who came by and said hi. If I forgot your name, I apologize. But it was great seeing everybody there. So,
and a big shout out to Kevin Vanderlud for the great review in iTunes. So if you haven't left one yet, do like Kevin did and leave us a 5-star review. Honestly, totally makes our day to see that people kind of make the 30-second effort to go in there and leave a note for us. So thank you.
Absolutely. And until next week, we'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Rogue Startups. If you haven't already, head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for the show. For show notes from each episode and a few extra resources to help you along your journey, head over to roguestartups.com to learn more.